I only showed up because I thought there was food.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm just giving a couple minutes to get the last couple people in. For those in the office, you're welcome to come in the conference room, Agility conference room. All right, it's 12:03. I want to get started. Welcome, everybody. This is BAI's training specifically for project manager tools in Ajera. So I want to guide you through kind of the process. And today's is going to be not a presentation style, but a walkthrough style. So what we're going to do is item by item, go through the various components of how you set up jobs, how you use Ajera, for just navigating around in general, understanding where your job is, managing budgets, planning, so scheduling, and then we'll step into invoice and then particular progress tracking. So make sure you can have where you can see. I'm going to share out the screen. We're going to go through various elements program by program. If you have any questions, feel free to just jump in with the question, as this is going to be much more like a working session. Okay. So anytime we get a brand new job, we're first going to start off by putting the job into Ajera. And so you want to know that in our system, under each folder, you have a new project folder. You'll start off with a JAS folder, and that's your JAS. So let's pick one of the new jobs. I'm going to run down. Most recent one is Kensington. So when you go under your folder, all of them will have a JAS folder. And this is where you're going to find the actual JAS template. And that's what I have open currently. So in your JAS template, this is where you're going to put the various elements. You can't see what? What are you seeing?
Screen. You're describing that screen?
Yeah.
We
That
can't
is
see
good.
it.
Okay.
What do you see? Nothing?
I just see you.
Or maybe you need to share
hold on.
the screen, not the.
Hold on. Okay. Tell
I
you
was
what,
able to see the spreadsheet on my end from Teams, so
you can?
yeah.
You can't see it. Okay. All right. So right now everyone's seeing my calendar, right?
Yeah.
Birch? Okay. So let me go back. Okay. Now, do you guys all see a JAS in Excel?
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good. So Amber's having a problem, but everyone else is good, apparently. So in this form, this is where we're going to start off by putting in the brand new job. So
What's the acronym again?
JAS, job assignment sheet.
J
JAS.
A S. Which folder under this one is?
Under
P.
the P, whatever your job number is, when you create the folder.
Okay. Yeah, sorry to bother you.
No, that's fine, because
It's
this
like
is
interactive.
specific. This one is a very working one, so
Okay.
I'm expecting questions. So let's say you get a brand new job.
Mm-hmm.
No one's even set the folder up.
Right.
We have a folder called new project setup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just copy that, paste it, and then you can get the new, like,
Yeah,
and that's
all
what I
the-
did.
All the folders that are required are empty and but they are built in there.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So I'll go under the new project setup here. You'll see this looks exactly like if I
Right.
go back here to the Kensington folder like this.
Right.
This is our standard folder setup.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're under the JAS folder, you're
Mhm.
going to see JAS _ template.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's what we've popped up
Mm-hmm.
on the screen now.
Yeah.
Okay. In this one, you could put your project name in. Remember to limit it to 40 characters. Project manager, and the various other pieces of information. One of the key things to know is that these two buttons here are active once you say activate, and it's a macro that runs in the background. If you're doing another, so the second sheet, so you'll do your initial one and you'll save it. So whatever you want to put in here, whatever service type. So let's say we're gonna do, I don't know, concept. We then put hours in here or dollars in. So let's say it's 25K. This is the way it's gonna look. 25K, we're just gonna pretend it's 250 hours at $100. Once this information is in, this can start your new job. Let's say it's just concept. But we're going past concept. For some reason, they say, I like something, or we want something different. And they want to do an extra work order. That's when we get into the new sheet button. Once we hit that, it will automatically generate your new sheet for you. And then you can pick what you want up here. So is it an EWO or whatever? Let's do an EWO and let's do 01 as our number. Once you do that and you hit name, it'll automatically name it. So if it's a fund reallocation, it will change it to there. So, and then this is where you'll come in and say, okay, they've given me an extra $10,000 to do it. That's when we can add the extra and it brings the total up. And that helps Angie understand how to set the system up. There's some additional information at the bottom that we have to fill out in terms of who the bill goes to, who the client is, any special instructions. But the gist of it is break the job down as you want to manage the job. Make sure we have the reimbursables set correctly, and then provide the sub-consultants as indicated for that job. This becomes the background for then jumping over into Ajera.
Micah, before you jump to the Ajera, can you go back to Jazz sheet?
Yes. Okay. Can't hear the question.
It's important to note that if it's the compensation, is it a lump sum job? Is it is it, what is the other options? Time card or
Time
cost
card.
plus?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very important. Otherwise, some of the projects can be lump sum jobs. That's when we get, whatever is amount is left, that will be left as profit. But, we need to identify these. It's very important in here when you set up the project first.
Correct. And modifications to that will actually change the way this looks up here. So good example, is that Shaq? Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay. A good example would be DGS, which is set up lump sum versus state highway, which is, time card. And that changes the rate and the profit, etc. Anything you want to add, Anthony? Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. The philosophy of this sheet, I worked on a couple of these with you. I didn't do it myself, but just getting into this. But you walked me through. But the thing that's hard as a beginner to understand, most of it's pretty simple, but this thing under engineering services and you put concept in there, and as you say, break down the job the way you want it. I have no idea what you mean by that.
So
when you showed this to me, you showed this to me twice. I don't understand it at all. I'm just honest.
Okay.
I could take a stab at that.
Okay.
Yep.
So most of these are generated based on the way that the task proposal is set up. So you can set it up. Every project is, usually a little different. But you can break up your budget by maybe milestone submission. If that's how it works for that client and for that project and for you personally, if that makes sense to do it like that. You can also, if you have a job that has a bunch of different departments are hitting it, so there's a structure budget, a highway budget, a traffic budget, a water resources budget, so forth and so on. You can also set it up so that each department has its own budget to kind of draw from. That helps in tracking, where the projects are hitting, to identify that. You can also take that a bit further, which is what Micah has on the screen here, where you're breaking it up by by milestone submission. So this is a DGS project, I think. So the ones that are labeled DD, that's design development, that's the first submission in any DGS project. So this one has a roadway budget, a structure budget, a water resources budget. And then the next step is the CD, that's construction documents. Different budgets for each one of those. In my humble opinion, this is probably broken out a little too specific. It's kind of tough to kind of track stuff down way to that level of degree. It's one, difficult to track it like that, and two, just not necessary. So somewhere in between this one and the other one might be more advisable. What ends up happening when you do it like this is the manager of each one of these phases isn't necessarily paying attention to what phase it is. And I'm sure if you actually looked at the Ajera records for this, you're gonna have probably like part one, the DD for roadway is probably significantly over budget. And then the part one construction docks roadway is significantly under budget. Looking at it kind of from that perspective, it's, you just need to sort of figure out what works for the project. And what makes the most sense to break it down.
And I find it differs between a lump sum job and a cost.
Yep.
Because in a job like this, we can't bill past the DD level because that's what we said in our proposal, the price was, so no one's gonna sign off on it. So your need may vary based on what the contract is. So like a good example is this one is complex. Brown Academy is simple. We have what, 5 things in there.
Right.
One for the bridge, one for each bridge, one for the inspection, and one for the getting the bid out the door.
Right.
Simple. Even then, we overran the one and underran the other. And that's sometimes a function of, okay, well, I didn't split the money up well, or we didn't quite estimate it in general well per item, but we hit the total budget. So that's.
I have a question. And when you told, looking at this sheet, we can see which task is under budget and which task is over budget.
Not in
I
this,
could not get it.
not on this. This
Oh.
is just like the project setup.
Okay.
This is all,
Yep.
this is all this.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, you're a step ahead of me.
Now,
thank you.
now, when you turn this in, Amber will enter project into Ajera exactly like it's.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
got that.
So let me jump over to that project. So that was 21.
But before we get into that, does everybody understand the difference between a time card and a lump sum project?
I know lump sum, but I never heard time card. Does that mean time and material?
They're kind of interchangeable terms.
Yeah.
Time and material, cost plus fixed fee,
Yeah.
Right,
time card, that they're all.
Yeah, I never heard it called time card in my career. That's something new.
yeah, cost and price is of hours, rates, all those things
Yeah,
broken
it's-
into. Lump sum is just like a lump sum value,
Yeah.
a single value.
Lump sum, and this is by client,
Yep.
by client preference and by
Yeah.
contract.
Yeah.
Lump sum projects are generally billed at the completion of a milestone.
Right,
So you'll hit a wall if you only submitted, 60% plans and you're trying to bill for more than that. They typically will kick that back. And you just kind of need to submit your invoicing as you track with the project and what your submission schedule
Yeah.
looks like.
I'm gonna hit that one specifically in a little bit, because
Okay.
what happens when you're 65% charged, but only 60%
Yeah.
complete?
Different stuff that we can do to work around it. Time cards are very similar or are very simple. It's hourly rates times our overhead rate times our fixed fee percentage. Again, which varies contract to contract and client to client. Whatever our negotiated rates are. And we just bill them basically out on an hourly basis.
But then when you're building up like this one here as an example, are we putting in what's in red or that's automatic? What are we inputting here? This is also confusing to me.
Okay, so let me jump back to that base one that I was playing with. So I put the number in. This is your first one, you're putting it right under initial.
That's the total contract in this one for
Well,
concept.
That's your individual. So let's say you got more than one.
Right.
Okay, so let's do PI, TSNL next.
Yeah, you have different tasks.
Okay,
Hey, Micah, we can't see your screen.
Why does that keep happening?
I don't, it's not sharing. Share dropped.
Oh, it dropped on you.
That's
Right.
interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, now can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's say you've got, let's just pick 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see where I'm putting this in at. You're putting this right under initial.
Right.
Okay, we would come down. Okay, you're gonna fill out, travel. $100, whatever. XYZ sub. 10,000. And there is logic
Name.
built in this thing,
Right.
keep you from doing something stupid. So we'll do ABC. Okay,
Right.
and then you're gonna fill in your hours. So you notice how this thing will add it all up. You got 100, you got 50 there plus the 100 plus the 10. It's added all up.
Right.
Your hours can come in here,
Your actual hours,
Whatever's in your proposal.
whatever's in your
whatever
code,
actual's in there. Right.
Correct.
You're filling that in.
and then the rate can go in. And the rate there, we have 2 different types contracts. So there's some that our rates are based on a fixed rate. So it's a factored rate. We can use a factored here, or we can use an unfactored and have it the multiplier up above.
Of course, they're average rates.
Correct.
There's multiple
Correct.
people working on the job.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
It's like when we do these contract or some of these Maryland, which is foreign to me from working in Virginia, I don't do any of this. So like when we do these Maryland jobs, we end up at an average rate at the end.
Mhm.
Which VDOT would never allow that. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're working on
VDOT has a very
So
different.
how do you calculate the average rate? Because the proposal will have a rate for the PM, design engineer, all those things.
Right.
So
Well-
how do you calculate the average rate to put in a concept? Because a lot of different level people will be working on that.
So what I do is I take the original cost
Mhm.
development
Mhm.
and then I will off to the side compute it.
Or divide with the total man hours.
Yeah, I'll take the
Okay.
the rate per category,
Understood.
hours divided by man hours. And
Understood.
so I might get, say, 125 here,
Mhm.
80 here, I don't know, just making up numbers, or whatever, and that will set your average factored rate, because we're doing factored rates here.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, that's a calculation I do based on the proposal.
And it seems like every client that I've worked with since I've been here this 3 years, they allow this average rate.
Yeah,
They
that-
want this
that-
average rate.
Yeah, that's more common
Right.
up here.
Okay.
Are these rates used for anything actually, or is it like, if it's a time card, are we like submitting it at these rates, or, because I noticed like a lot of the ones I've looked at, it doesn't necessarily divide out like you have it, or it was dividing for, hours times rate doesn't equal the total kind of thing.
So to be honest, if it doesn't, the person's not doing it correctly, who sent it in. I don't even type this in mine. I have it set up to where it mathematically figures it out. So I'll figure out how much concept cost based on what we assume, put that number in. And then put the hours in, and then it just does the math automatically, because it should add up. There's not anything in Ajera though that really.
These rates don't really mean anything in Ajera. This is for just kind of like internal budgeting.
Yeah,
So, if I can add something here, what I usually do is when you develop a proposal, the average rate is calculated in your cost calculation sheets, in
Yeah.
cost summary sheets. Take that average rate, just put it in here, because that average rate multiplied by your hours should give you the actual budget. And if you include multiplier and everything, it should basically come up correctly. So
Yeah.
always use that proposal that you developed. It should be cost summary sheet. That is our average rate that you should be using here.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Now let's jump over. All right, is everybody seeing the Ajera?
And
So, yeah,
Yep.
how do you migrated from that sheet into Ajera?
so that sheet gets emailed to Amber.
Okay,
Amber and Angie handle that.
Mhm.
That all gets punched in
or into the.
into Ajera.
Okay,
And so when you step into Ajera, you're gonna get this kind of view.
okay,
Either the supervisor or the PM, depending on who is looking. Where I'm going now is something under, so this little flower thing in the upper corner is your drop down for the menu.
Mhm,
There's something under manage called Project Command Center.
mhm,
That's gonna take you straight to a view that looks like
mhm.
this.
Okay.
Okay.
What's that, John?
The one I'm using
Yeah.
is 21-002.04. So this is the same one as the complex jazz we just saw. So once you step into here, this is your base screen. A lot of us will typically use the snapshot view.
Mhm.
And this is where you can actually see item by item, like all those different items we had, where we're at relative. So you got the contractual amount, which we want to focus on, and then the spent amount by line item. Okay. And then you have the work in progress or WIP, and you can see where the current work is being done. Any questions?
No.
Okay. So let's say we're doing, because there's a couple different jobs the PM have, one of which is progress reports and invoicing. So if you have any questions, there is something in here called detail, and it's on each item. If you click detail, it will take that particular item and open it up for you. And you can see where the whip is. And let me go find, I clicked one without whip. Let's find one with whip in there. Okay. You can see where the charges occur, who's particularly charging to the job. And with the descriptions on, we can see what they were doing. So that can assist anytime you're doing progress reports. This will also, the information is also presented on the billing report as well. Okay, but if you're mid-month and you need to see what's going on, you can always drill down in item by item. Any questions?
Before you clicked on check detail, because that seems very important, how do you get to this screen again?
So when
What's your path again?
okay, so let me back out. So base screen,
Right,
okay. Flower, I guess that's a flower. Project Command Center. And it's going to open up looking like this. Okay. That's when you go, okay, so Steve, you're looking at Brown Academy. Put your job number in and it actually would take you straight there. And then you're on project info, but you want to come over here to snapshot.
snapshot, right, okay.
One more thing that I think I see it's better to do for a project manager to do is if you go to project info. So you have these different phases: inspection, inbound truss, outbound, and P-truss. You have different phases. So make sure that you keep the active phase, that the phase that you are working on, only that one active. All other phases make work hold. Put them on work hold. That way, engineers who are working on that project do not charge it to the different phase.
Did you
So they
understand
should,
that? So let me do it. So you're jumping a little ahead of me, Shaq, but that's fine. We can go straight to that. So let's go over to back to the same project where we're in Sorensen. This is an example of one in which we have done that. And if you look through here, most of the tasks are actually on work hold. And the reason being is we've done DD with the exception of water resource, which still has some permitting stuff.
Right.
So DD is now closed for both roadway and structures. Okay. And the future tasks are closed, oddly enough, except one. So let's change this one because this one ought to be closed too, because we're not in construction yet. So what you do in that process is you come over to status and you can change it to work hold. And don't forget to save. When that's done, then that particular charge becomes invisible to people. So one of the things in doing this will help make it easier for where as a PM, you don't have to go through your billing reports and say, hey, all these charges in the wrong spot. Well, they shouldn't be in the wrong spot if it was closed. The thing you got to remember is when you flip to the next stage, you got to go back in and open up those particular charges and close off the previous. Questions?
Is this option available for everybody or just the building department to hold and to make something active or to put a hold on it?
If you are a PM, it should be active to you or
Okay.
higher. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I just did it. So like I just flipped one from active to work hold. This is the tool I use quite often.
And also, there are 100 million different toggles on and off for, the way things look, user privileges, different stuff. If you need something and it's perhaps not available, it's not intentional, it's just, there's a lot of stuff to turn on and off. So if you need it, chances are we can figure out a way to get you to have it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so if you are a PM and you don't see that option in there, speak up. Because it should be in there.
Also, is the screen still shared? Looks like the red.
Yes.
Okay, can you go up to like the custom box up at the top? That the other one where you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm gonna hold a mouse. It's fun.
So there's a custom view command center template. And you as a user can kind of choose what you want this to look like and what columns are shown to you, what are hidden, what are not. And there's hundreds of different configurations that you can do. And it's kind of more of a personal preference of what you need to see, how you want to see it. What might be more information than you need, you can turn it off. So I would suggest maybe you take a look at this and see if something, by default is not set up the way that you like it, you can mess with it and find a system or setup that works for you.
Does it have an option to show unplanned remaining?
Yes, I'll get that in
Yeah.
a second.
So Micah, if you close that screen, you hit I can't get rid of this. And then there's these, I don't know, one can see what I'm doing, but those columns at the top, there's probably 50 different columns you could add or remove. You go in there and then go to the manage, it's in there. That's the other one.
Project list maybe.
Yeah. So
We go under dollars.
dollars, you can turn off. You want spent remaining, is that what you asked?
Yes.
So if you turn that on, you'll add spent remaining. And it'll give you kind of like a snapshot as it is right now of how much is remaining. You can also view that by hours. You can view that by percentages. You can view that by dollar amount. This will also show you the active WIP. What's currently billed, like I said, there's.
Okay, let me go back, because I think it's just, if you look at this list, I mean, there's 15 options here.
Is that available in the snapshot?
Yes.
So now let's go over there.
That's really the most important.
So now let's come in here. Let's see if that shows it now. All right. Where's that option? Is it under phase info?
I think the phase info is the stuff that's like in the
Okay,
here.
yeah. So, reports, snapshot. That's all it gives me. So. Yeah, I'm seeing manage, but I'm not seeing it under snapshot itself.
Oh, Tim, you want the budget remaining on the snapshot?
Yes, so
Yeah.
for structure, WRB, highway.
That I don't like here.
Yeah.
That I don't think you can change.
I have a workaround. We'll get to in a second. It'll answer your question.
But I mean, you can give yourself a rough count here. You can see the contract versus the build,
I might be jumping ahead, but I just take my calculator.
Mhm.
So the spent from the contract. To find out what is remaining. I move the decimal point over 2 places to the left, divide by 2. That's how many hours you have left.
Yep.
Okay. Is that clear? So Tim, this option will give it to you here. It just won't give it to you by, you see,
Breakdown.
it's not breaking it down yet.
Okay.
Now in the scheduler, I can show you a breakdown.
Pick that. Filter objects by like matching and filter.
Okay.
So you could filter this by project manager. So if you have a bunch of jobs and you want to look at all of them kind of all at the same time. So maybe we can pick on Mr. Tim here. You get rid of that. So these are all the projects that are assigned to Tim. Now, if you want a quick reference,
Do only your job.
only your jobs or,
And we can actually filter that a little further, because you can get rid of, we can get rid of preliminary.
yeah,
And work hold, so let's just go active. And then there's 5. Questions? Everyone still awake?
Team didn't spend anything on this project.
We got NTP 4 days ago. So we're too busy working on your project, Shaq.
Thank you.
Okay, so how many people are even remotely familiar with the scheduler? So go back to the little flower. Under manage, you have schedule. So schedule has 2 tabs. This thing's automatically filtered to me. So the only people I'm going to see are people assigned to me. Okay. I'm going to obviously change that. Again, go back to the customize. We can run it how we want to through here, but I currently have it filtered based on supervisor. I can always filter it based on department, etc. But what I'm looking at with this sort of thing is overall project tracking. So there's two, the employees is how I would do what I would call workload estimating. So let's say you've assigned, like in this case, Marine's assigned to a given project. So Shaq is really screaming, he needs to have this done. So Marine's got a bunch of hours there. Okay. Well, let's say Frederick County is also screaming and I've put in hours for her all on that a different project. Now what you can see is all of a sudden now we've got an overload. So this becomes something you can use, one, for tracking resources for by the hours. But the other thing is you could also use this for the project side. And this is where, Tim, you get into like this shows you things broken down where you can see the, based on the hours I've put in, it starts computing, hours remaining, scheduled hours, available hours. But again, with that customization, we can actually come in and bring in things like spent remaining, available dollars, either way. So, and I think let's go with available. And then you can see, okay, now let's go to a simpler one. Oops.
It's a very helpful aspect to kind of plan your team's week, next 2 weeks, the following month. You can really kind of see what you have available, where you have some overloads or underutilization. It's also very helpful if everybody is participating in filling this out regularly, from like an office perspective or comparing, different departments where some overload or underutilization is happening. But like most things, the less information that you put into it, the less helpful it is.
Mm-hmm. So I'm giving an example right here, and we just started the job. So there's a couple hours been sprinkled around to get some things going on. I have almost $80,000 available. Based on that, you can see how our current charges are going to hit. But this is where this number is, Tim. That's by phase. So you've got, 35, 36 later, you've got another 6,700 after that. And you can see these charges as you program it, it takes it down. So your number available or spent will change with time based on how you're programming this in there. This will give you a good predictor. So you can see current spent remaining, here's how many available dollars, and the difference turns out to be what I just programmed in. Okay. So this is the actual number. This is the number based on my projection of who's working on what. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Can we filter this only for the projects that to a particular project manager instead of showing all the projects here? Can
Yeah,
we
yeah.
filter to show on?
So I have no filters on
Yeah. Okay.
right now. Yes, you can filter all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to filter. Yeah, sorry, wrong one. I'm going to filter, go to my projects. And then,
Okay.
yeah, you're going to see a much shorter list here.
Okay. And also, how do we add a new employee? Let's say somebody else who's not in this list wants I want to hunt them to work on this project. Let's say bridge replacement, right? How do we
Okay.
add the employee?
So let me go to, tell you what, let me go right here to Jug Bay. If you do this from the beginning, it's fairly easy to set up. So let's say you go to this little blue guy
Mhm.
and you click. it'll bring up all the aspects of it. Okay. And then you're just gonna put the people you anticipate working on. So like, here's an example of, this project, I'm in there and, Fossil's in there. Okay. And I've entered them. So let's say all of a sudden I need Marine's help.
Okay.
You just type the name under employee and it'll, just start typing the name. The one thing you have to remember is you have to use their actual name, not any given name. Well, however, it's in our database. That's what's, you type in Marine, it's gonna look at you like you're stupid. Just like with Fossil, it's the name that is in our paychecks basically is the one that's gonna show up here. Does that make sense? Now, this has to be done per phase. Once it is done, the people that have been assigned turn blue in here. Once you've started setting it up and someone shows up, you can actually just use the plus button here. And it'll automatically add them to it. Do you guys see how that works?
Yep, thank you.
So then you can, if you go over to the right side where it says schedule, you can add assigned hours for this week, next week. I think you can push this out like 6 months.
Yeah, I've never gone past 8
Yeah, I mean,
weeks,
I wouldn't,
but
yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
5 to 8's where I'd be. Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's the one little catch I've had with this one is I find the employees to be much easier, the employee tab to be much easier to use because I'm trying to do workload. But let's say you don't see a job in here. There is a filter that works inside the system where if that person has never worked on the job, you kind of have to go back to project, punch an hour in for them, and then it'll all of a sudden show up. So just because you've added them doesn't bring them back into this employee list, because then you'd like have an unending list of every job I've ever assigned Tim to. So it's trying to help you have a little logic, but that's a little trick I've seen before. You got to go back to project, assign them an hour, or if they work an hour, it'll show up. So like for here, the red ones are ones in which someone has worked that was never assigned to the project. Okay. And so that could be the way you set it up, the project, but it also could be how, you had someone unanticipated show up. Okay, questions?
Yeah.
All right, so is it kind of clear how you can use this for a workflow?
Just a quick question, Micah. So this
Yep.
is only weekly, right? There's no option to like expand it to like daily or maybe like other time period.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I mean, it's tracked week, I guess it's weekly.
It's weekly. You're locked. You can do multiple weeks. You can go up to 104 weeks. But you can only do it by the week.
Okay.
I mean, my comment would be is I've done things like this before, like in huge projects. I've gone out 6 months. But I think it's becoming useful to us now. You agree, Mike, because we're getting bigger.
Yeah.
When you have 3 people, you don't need to do this.
Yeah.
But now that we're getting bigger, we have to manage it.
Well, and when you have a lot of different jobs, and when you have conflicting deadlines, it becomes, if you keep this dedicated, like I know, like, I mean, Steve and Tim know, like I'll be worried about something before anyone knows there's anything to be worried about because I projected this thing out and all of a sudden I've got people running 50 hours a week. Well, at 4 weeks in advance, I can do something about that. If that's next week, I can't do anything about it. It's, so are we having an overload? Well, if we are, do we have unused resources we can, tap into? If not, can we put it at 42 hours a week for the next 5 weeks instead of 50 or 60 hours the final week, and so that gives you the ability to kind of see in advance a little bit. And as long as you keep adjusting it as things, come and go, fall online, fall offline, it becomes a very valuable tool. And then from a project side, you can, once you've programmed that all in, you can actually come in and see, okay, I'm actually doing I can handle the hours that I've programmed in. It also gives you a hint, like here with the spent remaining available dollars, that gives you, okay, we had 2,700, I've programmed in 1,800. Is that enough to get done? You know, and that gives you a chance in advance because you're programming in this out, 5 weeks or so. You know ahead of time you're running into budget troubles or whatever. Does that make sense? Okay, so this gives you both the budget look in the scheduler here and then the employee workload there. And then the last portion, I guess, once we have all this in Ajera, every month at about the 10th, we all get our,
Yeah.
dreaded email. And that dreaded email says, you got all these reports you got to do, right? And they're going to look, let me blow this up so you guys can see better. This is your billing report. So this is, Angie or Amber hits the magic button. It generates all the charges to the job. And part of our job is to actually look through here and make sure this is legit. Do I have charges that just don't look right? Like I had one time where it said under a DGS job, it said Maryland such and such. Well, oops, someone hit the wrong job. So that's one of the things you want to look for.
And who's billing to my job is the big one I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's someone I never heard of, then I got a problem.
And then one of the things we're looking at is this breaks it down per phase. I'm going to show you the per phase. And then you have the total here where you can see what's our current WIP. And that's when you want to then jump into your invoice. And unfortunately, I don't have two monitors to share with you guys. But we had 40, what was that, 45? Say 45. We then have to come in. Now, this is a lump sum job. So we were talking about lump sum earlier. We have submitted DD at the previous month. So we now can come in and say, okay, DD's done for part 1. DD's done for part 2, 100%. Water resources lagging a little bit because of the permitting. So they're not quite up to that 100%. But that percentage goes in. And if you're doing a good job, you come down here and magically this number is what, at least the 45 plus the 700. And so now we're good. One of the things Angie told me to remind you guys, please make sure this gets updated if you have this type. And this is your progress report or project status. There's 2 different forms. SHA has a very different progress report, and it's a traditional progress report. A lot of the lump sum jobs have just something tagged at the bottom. So make sure you don't forget that.
That's what you're trying to get paid for.
Yeah. And the bigger the number, the more detailed explanation we need to provide. Questions?
I usually look at the billing report where people in other departments put in notes.
Yeah.
They did. And from that, I can fill out the progress report, not only the structural work, but also for like David Kendall revised erosion and sediment control plans. I can type what in the progress report, what other people are doing. And Rachel and Michael Summers have the most detailed notes.
But you're not complaining about the detail.
I'm not complaining about the detail.
But yeah, and if you guys are doing this, encourage them not to put simple stuff in. I mean, Sam can get away with putting simple stuff in because he's going to put in cat, okay, got it. But a lot of the engineers, what exactly did you do? What, is it permitting? Is it, is it regular water design? Is it stormwater design? When you get to the bridges, am I working on the bridge on the job or am I working on the culverts on the job? That detail is so much easier if I could just scan down real quick and go, oh yeah, we worked on both the bridge and the culvert. Especially if you're not the discipline that's actually, if it's like, this is Shaq doing it, my guy's putting that in helps him. He doesn't have to come back and chase someone down and say, hey, what were you working on? Make sense? All right. Now, any question on the SHA style progress report? You have a question on that? Okay. Those are much more common. So that's here, what'd you do? List your little tasks, etc. Okay. So now special reports that we might need. Close this out. That out. See. Okay. So now let's jump back in Ajera here. Close this bad boy down. If you're middle of the month and you're trying to keep track of the various jobs you're working on, if you go back to the flower under reports, there is WIP report under, so you're not going to see it like that. You'll see custom inquiries and you'll see standard inquiries. If you open up custom, there is something called a WIP report. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and just run this. Okay. And this is gonna pop up, and let's pick on Puskar. So Puskar can come down here and look at his particular projects, and he's got WIP of, and when you're coming and doing your PM stuff, this is where it's probably the easiest way to figure out if all of a sudden dud charges show up. Because if you see a job in there that no one's working on, that's when you can flag it before we get to the billing point. And it's probably the easiest place to come and grab. Just run this real quick, look down the list. Does that make sense? What jobs are open? Yes, then fine. You can, you close it. You're like, okay, no one's charged anything overly stupid. Now, you're not seeing individually within those reports that, like say one of my jobs here for Brown and Root. I don't know if, Anthony charged to writing a report. I can't see that from here, but I can at least look through here and say, hey, I should not have any charges on something like,
You can drill down.
you can, but not from the overview. Cause you can go right in. All right, hold on. But you gotta, this will send you over to the other one, right? And so there's additional detailing, but not like, for the reason I brought this up is Tim was like, well, what if someone charges a job I don't know that they're working on? I find the other one easier, just like to go into the snapshot and drill down.
There is another way to do that as well. If you go to the timesheets, let's say if you have go back to that main Ajera tab. If you go
Okay.
here, go to time and expenses. And if you go time by project, you will see all your projects here, and you will see who charged. If you click on that plus button, you will see who charged how many hours on your project. If you see any project, you will see all the employees who charged. You will identify it here as well. Every week, this is what I do every week. Before I approve the timesheets, I go back and check who charged. And if I find anybody who's not supposed to be working on that project, and I go find out from here.
Now that's how he always knows what I did.
All right, do you want me to go through that again? Just make sure everyone's got that down. Come under your, go to the flower, time and expense, time by project. And that's only for yours. It's automatically filtered. Yeah, I know. I've already straightened one person out on that one. But this is, Anthony just brought up something since he's looking at mine. He goes, that top one's wrong. And I'm like, yeah, I know. There's the power of that is like, okay, that's a job that no one should be charging to. Actually, that's not even a job. That's like the master contract.
Contract.
Yeah.
But that gives you an idea. It's like 17007 is not a valid job anymore. It's closed. So I guess we
That-
we
that's
we haven't been
because-
paid, right?
That's because I forgot to tell Yenna to charge it to 12/0/11/22.
You forgot to charge, I forgot to tell Fossil too. So,
Point being, if you look at this, at the end or the beginning of every week for the prior week, you should keep good tabs on what's going on. That way, the thought process is by the time you get the billing reports, everything should already be shipshape. And you don't need to make any changes or really have any surprises because everything, you already know what's coming.
yeah. Questions? All right, so this is one of the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna open this up. Is there anything in Ajera that you wish you could do that you don't know how to do? So we have Anthony here for that Master Ajera class here. So go ahead and shoot
Already
questions out.
answered my question. To have the unspent in the snapshot. for
Yep.
each.
Anybody out there?
So you mentioned that we can also look at the budget by like how many hours remaining. Could you please show us how to do that?
Yeah, hours remaining.
Yep.
So go back to command center. So you're talking about your snapshot?
Yeah, so
Option?
this tells you your budget, right, in terms of
Yes.
dollar value, but you mentioned some, I think,
Well, so you have spent here. Now, we can do hours, so you have hours budget, this is spent. You can also change this up. So where this can be, you can put in hours remaining. This is
Okay.
for the entire budget. Is that what you're looking for?
What about the phases? Does this give you a report on how many hours left for each phase?
Yeah, so let me go back to that other section then. Because the scheduler actually does better than this at breaking it down. And that's why I love this module. So the scheduler, when you get into that, I have scheduled hours and available hours, but I can always come in here and punch in, remaining hours. I can put in scheduled dollars, etc. Okay, so you can see how I have actuals, remaining, scheduled, and available. I like this very detailed. That way I can come down to this here, and I've got my budget was 74. I've got 30 remaining, of which I've used 8. So I still have 22 not scheduled hours. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's also very. You have to be mindful of what you're actually looking at because you might have some budgeted hours, but depending on who you have working on it, that might not work within the budget. Because if you have $100 remaining in a project and you assign someone that's, $100 an hour, you have 1 hour for that person. Conversely, if you assign someone that is $50 an hour, you have 2 hours.
2 hours. Yeah.
So it's a guideline to use, but you kind of just need to be cognizant of the dollar amount that's remaining as well.
Yeah, and that's why if you look at it, I've got spent and available sitting there as well. And I like punching who I have working on the job because the more you punch in, the more you schedule, the more that available hour remaining and dollars is actually realistic. Because if I say I've got 8 hours scheduled, then it actually computes the rate and the factors for, say, Tim. That's gonna change my available a lot more than if I put Yenna on it, the intern.
Yeah, go down a little bit. Let's just like plug in some tape numbers for Jug Bay.
Mike, Mike, on the screen, on
Yeah.
the screen, if you stay here, the top line, 2101 Twin Lake Bridge, you see the hours remaining 43.5, but the spent remaining is negative. That's
Yeah.
because you use the person at higher rate than you're actually supposed to be
Yeah,
using
that's-
based off of.
Yes,
That's why it's
Yes.
showing negative, but the hours are shown as 43 remaining.
yeah, and that's why I got both turned on. Cause I watch both, cause I don't manage by hours, I manage by dollars, but I wanna see hours so I can, cause I think in terms of hours. So let's go down to report, okay? I have 26 budgeted, I've got 14 remaining, I've got 8 scheduled, I still have hours available.
So you start plugging in like schedule,
Let me put an hour in for me, cause I gotta check it, and then all of a sudden, boom, that goes down. Let's say we gotta have, let's say Fossil's gotta, revise it, then it goes down again. And you can watch in real terms, like I have it in there for 2. If I take this to 4, my availability goes down to less than $1,200. And so I have $1,200 and I have 1 hour left. Well, then that means have $1,200. I don't really care what the hour
Yeah.
says. But if Tim's writing the report, I don't have 13 hours, I have, less. So that allows you to kind of watch that game and you can play, you kind of understand how the hours is affecting you in terms of real term. Does that make sense?
Got it. Thank you.
So this is under the flower schedule, and remaining hours.
So it's under, let me go back to there. So let's go back here.
Flower, right?
So you're gonna see this, you pull your flower drop down, it's under
Schedule.
manage and schedule.
Okay.
Yep.
That is-
Any other questions? Everybody just hungry? Hungry?
I usually take
I am.
unspent remaining, divided by 200, that gives you a rough idea of how many hours.
by 200.
Because with our overhead, usually, like, I might be 230.
He has an expensive group at the moment. We're working on getting that number down.
So if I use 200, it kind of
The
helps.
average bill rate that you have, 200?
Knows how much it would take for me, how many hours it would be for me to finish it.
Okay.
And then I would obviously increase that, knowing I would have Danny and Maureen working on it. It's just conservative. That's why I said move the decimal point over 2 places, divide by 2.
Yeah, Tim's got the old school cheats.
That's good. Good
So
idea.
if I do that and I have 10 hours left to finish it, I give it to Maureen or Faisal.
I got 10 steps on a calculator. Tim's doing it in his head.
Yeah. Any questions? All right, guys, thank you.
One last thing, as you guys play around with this and investigate, what these tools are, what these features are, what works for you, if you have any other questions, or you see something that you think might be needed, that's not there, we can work on getting it to you. It's not hidden intentionally. There's a lot of user privileges and settings and whatever.
Yeah, I would like to make another request for all the managers who have approving authority of the timesheets. If you are approving somebody's timesheets, please make sure that the time every week when you approve the timesheet, make sure that the charges that your employee are charging to the correct project and also to the correct phase. Otherwise, when billing reports are printed, accounting will have issues. They will have to move the hours from one project to another project. That creates issues later, and you have to re-sign the timesheet and all those stuff. So it's better to catch it before than later.
Yeah, and well, and also make sure it's not charged to something stupid, like We had one job where everything was on work hold except the sub-consultants and someone charged to a sub-consultant. And there needs to be kind of a warning to all the groups. It's just the directors and PMs should let their guys know. If you can't find a charge number, say something. Don't just put something in Ajera. So. Anything else, Shaq?
I have a question for Anthony.
Yeah.
Is there an option to create a filter, additional filter in the customized project command center to filter the projects by project type? It's not currently available there. Is this something that you can add on?
I think you stumped him at the moment.
What do you mean by project type?
So we define our project types by the disciplines. Right now our project types are, let me see, they are highway engineering, design
Highway,
build,
water
traffic
resources.
engineering, staff support, bridge, data collection, water
I
resources,
understand.
so forth. Yeah.
The department.
I just charge to highways, just.
No, so when you look at the projects list, if there was a way to filter only the projects that are, yeah, it might be easier to just do a snapshot of that. So I was just curious.
I got
The data is-
I got an answer for you. Go to selected projects. And hit that button. Then, here. Project type. Okay. Set that. It's right here. Put that to active. That's a source. So, like, let's say we want to look at all the bridge jobs. Can you highlight all of those? Then hit shift and then,
Don't let me.
It doesn't work.
okay, then hit select. Maybe, there's gotta be a way to add them all together.
I don't know if I can filter this. No.
It's like it doesn't give you to select multiple.
You can't shift, hold down shift and then
I'm trying. It's not, and the control's not working either.
Can you drag from the top? Drag,
No.
That doesn't work. Yeah.
You'd have to build a list.
Mhm.
Yeah, push card, the only way that I see to do that is to build this like custom list. Let's go to the object mashing and filter. Yeah, there's no way to kind of filter out by project type.
Yeah, because those are all too generic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
for
and-
future projects, can we make this a little bit more streamlined where we get rid of, we basically have however many disciplines we have in our office. Can we streamline that and have projects assigned to one of those disciplines instead of those other ones that really don't exist?
You talking about having a filter here? Like,
Yes, yes.
yeah, well, I mean, I don't know why you couldn't do marketing contact as just the department. And then that would give you a filterable.
Yeah, that's not a needed thing.
Oh. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. It's another request in the current jazz form. There is no Virginia field. Can we add that?
There's no what?
Virginia.
There is no field for Virginia. It's only DC, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. Although we don't do any work in Pennsylvania. Maybe you used to.
Yeah. Yes.
And once we figured out how VDOT invoices work, I'm trying to figure it out myself. Maybe we need to update the Jazz a little bit more to accommodate that too.
Yeah, we can do that.
So those are some minor stuff I had, I think. But this was very helpful, especially the scheduler. I knew almost nothing about that. So now,
Yep, that's good.
I would take a look
Very,
at it.
very
Yep.
beneficial.
Yeah, like I said, the scheduler thing, it can be very helpful if everybody participates in it.
Mhm.
You can see what's going on, across all departments, all groups. That's very helpful. It's considerably less helpful if, only Mike is doing it.
Yeah.
The other thing with that postcard, it's gonna be critical to do that with the interns. Because if we're moving them between departments, having the information there that, hey, this person's needed is gonna be critical for planning. That'll highlight, hey, wait a minute, I've got XYZ person for like 2 days a week for the next 3 weeks. If you need them full time, then hey, I gotta go talk to whoever that PM is and see, is that real? Is that pressing? Can we make a deal,
Yes, I think on our PMs, and I would defer to Shaikh, Redit, and Habib here, but they do their staff when they meet weekly with them to discuss work assignments and so forth. If they can do that, it's more of a planning tool to see how much budget
Yeah.
we have and how
Well,
we're going to utilize it over time.
I guess
Yeah.
where I'm concerned is not necessarily the people that are their staff, that's kind of them managing that, and that's not really the purpose of this, but I'm worried about shared staff. Like what
Okay.
happens when you have a staff working across disciplines?
Yeah.
That, who is, because they can actually see how many hours they're assigned. I didn't step through that process, but that you can look at your schedule and see what you're scheduled for.
Yeah, and if you're, Shayak, if you go through and you, I don't know, assign somebody, 20 hours of work, and Micah, you go through and you assign the same person another 20, and Habib goes through and assigns the same person another 20, you got 60 hours assigned to the same person for that given week.
Yeah.
You'll be able to see that you got an issue there.
Yeah, the manager in particular will be able to see that because they're like, wait a minute, I got someone who's pulling my person, whoever they're assigned to. So, because I can assign hours to people that don't work directly under structure. So that's the way that's set up. Is I could go and, hey, I got an intern. We're sharing it between the two of us, and I'm punching how many hours I'm assuming they're working in there. So, I think that'll be helpful with shared resources.
So Micah, once you allocate hours to each employees, is there a way we can print a report for, let's say, shared employee, how many hours he's been allocated? Because you've been allocating the employee with different projects, but overall, how do we see the overall allocated hours for every week for that employee?
Go over to the employee tab.
So,
Here, just plug in some hours for, just put in some stuff for Tim, right?
yeah, okay, so. Yeah.
You go down here.
Okay.
So if you go over to employee. Minimize all of that, so it's not so.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
So we stuck in hours for Tim in Marine, and you can see these things are showing up. So let's say we're talking about Marine in particular, or you know, whoever. All of a sudden I put hours in. Now look, I got a 48. Doesn't care what job they're working on. If someone's put
Yep.
hours in there, you see it. And all of a sudden I got a flag in there going, oh, I'm over 40.
Okay.
So that's the beauty of this thing. And then in terms of if you want this out, there is an export up here, and it'll bring it out as an Excel file, and you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, and it's also showing that he's at 48, but Maureen's only at 24. So you got one that's overutilized and one that's underutilized. I realize this is just made up numbers, but
Yeah, but no, that's literally what I do, because I've had times where I've had someone at 60, and you're like, oh, we got a job starting that I planned on putting them on. Maybe that's not the best person to put on that job. You know, they're still tied up in the previous job. And you can kind of work on planning a little bit better in terms of start dates, et cetera.
and as you schedule the hours on those projects, you can also see what it does to, the budgets of each of the phases that you assign them to. And you can work on the burn rate, make sure you're not, overutilizing or hitting a project too hard.
So the hours in the actual column, is that the hours that the employee has been charging this week?
That's
And the week
the
before?
stuff that's pulling directly from the timesheet that's been entered.
Yeah. Matter of
Okay.
fact, the green, yellow, to the left is all actuals for the last, so the actual is this week. And then at the 2 weeks before, we'll show you what's going on, prior.
Mhm.
And then the schedule is in the same week as the actual. So I scheduled, like example, Marine here, I scheduled it for 35 hours and 5 hours, but she ended up working 27 so far and 5 on, over it. No, that's a 5 on Kensington, which isn't in the system yet. But that gives you an idea where you can see, okay, this person's not actually working what I thought they were. There's something going on that changes. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because you're comparing it to this top number. I guess it doesn't make sense. I don't know. I don't know
Actuals,
what you're comparing.
actuals are here for this week.
Okay,
Scheduled is here.
okay,
So
the two columns you're comparing.
I'm looking at this number where it's like, okay, I got a charge here that isn't matching what I anticipated the charge to be.
How did the actual get in there?
Through timesheets.
So that was actually automatic.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
So that's
This
pretty
is,
powerful. then.
no, this is extremely powerful.
Yeah, that's a nice feature.
This is also why you do your timesheet today. Because if I'm running this and you haven't put your timesheet in since Monday, I'm blind.
Who does that?
Probably so.
Project managers, and worse the higher you go, I think.
I've been well trained to do it every day for the last 30 years, so. Every owner gets pissed about that.
Yeah, but that, again, the data is only as good as the data you're dealing with, so. But that's how live this thing is. She has 32 hours in her timesheet. It's Thursday.
Right,
She should have 24 to 32, depending on where she's at,
right.
Like, she knows what she's doing today. She's already punched it in, Faisal's got 24 hours in. Okay, so he's done everything up to today. He just hasn't put today in yet. That's pretty good data. Let's say Yenna was full-time. I'm not happy. She's got 8 hours in her timesheet. It's Thursday,
Right.
So you can kind of see where you have holes too.
Right.
Make sense? Any more questions? All right, if not, thank you guys.
Thanks, Micah.
Thank you, Micah.
Yep.
Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Micah.
All right, thank you.
Speaking of burn rate, is there a way in Ajera we can overwrite Anthony's